This video is sponsored by Squarespace. 6 rookies will begin their first full-time F1 seasons in 2025. Contrast that with not a single driver transfer occurring across all 10 teams going into 2024. So trying to predict how the 2026 F1 driver market will look is quite frankly a mug's game. Yet here we are for the 6th year in a row, this mug is going to try his damnedest to get it right. I only managed 11 out of 20 in my 2025 predictions, a 55% hit rate. We can do better. My name's Tommo, his name's Minton. Let's talk about it. Just like last year, I'm going to go from most confident assertion to least of all 11 teams in 2026. That's right, I'm not forgetting about you, Cadillac. I know they're not 100% technically confirmed, but for all intents and purposes, come on, it would take a lot to go wrong for them to not be on the grid in 26. And don't forget to let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. I'll do my best to reply to all of the top comments within the first kind of couple of hours of this video going live. Let's crack on. Ferrari, no change, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. There is no scenario in which I see the driver lineup at Ferrari changing going into 2026. Nothing. Even if one batters the other, okay, probably more likely Charles going to batter Lewis. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's more likely than Lewis battering Charles. But again, even if that did happen, this is so lucrative. This is really aiming for 2026. I think Lewis has got an opportunity here to win a title in 25 for sure, but I think 26 is the bigger opportunity. He'll have a year under his helmet. By then, I think it's going to be comfortably Charles ahead so far this season, but 26 could go either way. But regardless, again, this lineup is not changing, okay? No chance. McLaren, no change, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. I almost put the McLaren boys first here. You could argue there's a chance though that them two being so competitive with one another could cause friction, maybe, even though I think them two as personalities, as characters, will keep it very chill. Give me an example, right, of two teammates fighting at the very top, keeping it amicable. Paranoia could creep in, maybe one of them could have their head turned, but I think 2026 is way too soon for that to happen. I think regardless of whoever comes out on top between the two of them, they will still both back themselves to get one over the other in 2026 regardless. Sauber, no change, Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. Hülkenberg to Audi was one of my very few predictions that I got spot on last year. German driver, the most high-profile German driver, active German driver in Formula 1 right now at Audi. This is a big deal for Audi. It's been a long time coming. The VW group struggling. It's felt at times like, oh, is this actually going to happen? They seem to be serious. And Hülkenberg's a very, very serious driver. Still incredible over a lap. A great driver for Gabriel Bortoleto to learn from. Someone who's won back-to-back Formula 2 and Formula 3 titles. You don't do that very often. Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, the only examples of drivers to do that. And they've all gone on to be pretty decent, I think it's fair to say. I really do think Gabriel's going to give Nico a lot to think about this year. And if he can deliver on this potential that he has shown so far, I would not be surprised if he outscored Nico. I really wouldn't. And you know I rate Nico incredibly highly. And look, they'll struggle through a year of Sauber and then Audi will slap their logo on the side. I think that's an opportunity. Look, at the end of the day, we don't know how it's going to go. Is the Audi PU that's being developed in Ingolstadt going to be any good? They can still show their quality. And Sauber did make a big step up after Vegas at the end of last season. So I don't think they'll be miles off the back of the pack like they were for most of 2024 in 2025. I think Hülkenberg and Bortoleto will get a better shot of showing what they can do than Bottas and Joe did. Hülkenberg will finish his career at Audi. Bortoleto's one for the present and the future. I'm very, very confident they will still both be in their seats come 2026. But you know what you don't have to wait till 2026 for? To build your very own beautiful online home, thanks to today's video sponsor Squarespace, of course. I first launched my first Squarespace website all the way back in 2018, and since then it's only continued to add functionality and features and become an even better place to recommend you to build, whether it's a portfolio or an online store or a blog. Squarespace's Blueprint AI tools make it an absolute doddle. Really, really easy to get something really smart in next to no time at all, and you can only continue to go on to refine and develop and build something amazing. Squarespace is completely free to try, so you might as well have a play around. You might be surprised just how advanced you can go in terms of, well, SEO, in terms of customer support, in terms of payment options. The sky is the limit. And when that time inevitably comes around that you want to build your very own beautiful online home, head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your very first website or domain. Mercedes, no change, George Russell and Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Much like the Sauber pair, you've got a generational youth alongside someone with a lot of experience who's very built into the sport. Of course, Hülkenberg's been around for a lot longer than George Russell, but George is no rookie anymore. I know the Verstappen Mercedes rumours will continue to float around. Of course, they will. Toto has put his cards very much on the table, but then again, the way things ended last year with the little Russell Verstappen tiff, I don't know, I just feel like Mercedes is maybe too political a team for Max. The sensible play from Toto is to back these two, because I think George has shown he has got the minerals to fight and win a Drivers' World title. He's not only quick, but also he's got the mentality, being able to step up and not let Max walk all over him, I think is a strength. That's in his corner. That will help him more than it will hinder him. No change needed here. I could have even put them above Sauber, to be honest. Maybe again that Verstappen thing, if it really does flip 180, but that's going to take a hell of a change. So I'm pretty confident it's going to be George and Kimi in 26. Racing Bulls, one change: Isaac Hadjar, Arvid Lindblad. Yuki Tsunoda will no longer be part of the Red Bull family in 2026. I am so sure of it. Arvid Lindblad is quite clearly being lined up to take a Racing Bulls seat in 2026, with the 17-year-old currently plying his trade in Josh Revel's favourite racing series, the Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand. He's leading the championship with one 3-round event left to go, a 59-point lead over P2, and if he does win it, that's 18 points for his super license. That will go along with the 15 he gained from finishing 4th in Formula 3 last year, and because the super license looks back at the last 3 seasons, you have to look at his 2023 campaigns as well. 3rd in Italian F4, which is 7 points, and 5th in UAE F4, which is 3. Add it all up, and he's on 43 super license points before he's even done any FP1s or his rookie 2025 F2 season with Campos. Red Bull will have seen Kimi Antonelli be parachuted straight into the Mercedes, and they'll have seen what they did with Max, giving him a Toro Rosso seat at 17 years of age as well. They won't be afraid to do the same with Arvid. Red Bull definitely won't. And he does have all the ingredients. Will it manifest? Potential is a dangerous word, right? There's no guarantee on anything, but it's looking pretty good for him. So then I've also kept Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls seat alongside Arvid for 26, which might be a bit controversial. And I know Isaac is a bit of a rough diamond, okay? He's had his moments, but the raw potential is absolutely there. In fact, I look at Hadjar and see someone who will probably have a similar career arc to Yuki Tsunoda. Very rough at the start, but will establish himself and become solid and really, I think, quite dependable now, Yuki is, if he's given the time. If you got this far in the video, drop a like and a comment and tell Minton how beautiful he is. What does he remind you of? What is his beauty equivalent to? With Arvid carrying so much potential, I think they can almost take the risk on Hadjar, because again, the raw ability is there. If they can learn from what did and didn't work with Yuki Tsunoda to make Hadjar's development more efficient, I think they could be onto a really good thing. I do. There's no strings attached as well. Yuki, obviously, with his Honda connection, that was always gonna move with him to Aston Martin likely, whereas Hadjar is all Red Bulls. And sure, there's a chance that Yuki stays and Isaac only gets a year, but Yuki needs to get out of there, so I just do not see that happening, even if Racing Bulls want to keep Tsunoda. Alpine, one change: Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto. Unfortunately, this one does feel like an inevitability, whatever happens merit-wise, okay? Because Jack Doohan's really had a tough run of it as of late. I do not envy, like, he's got this opportunity, he's made it to F1, it's the dream come true, and straight away there's all this, you're going to lose your seat after 5 races. You got to feel for him, you do. And it's interesting because Jack was the final of 3 big announcements at Alpine last year in very quick succession. Flavio Briatore was announced as executive advisor on the 21st of June 24. Then just over a month later, Ollie Oakes was announced as team principal on the 31st of July. And then finally, just under a month after that, Jack Doohan was announced as a 25 driver on the 21st of August. Oh, I'm not done, by the way. Then fast forward a bit to the 30th of November and Paul Aaron is announced as Alpine Reserve, Ollie Oakes' old high-tech driver. And then, of course, 9th of Jan this year, Franco Colapinto was announced as an Alpine Reserve too. Chaos. Oakes and Briatore were in charge when they made the decision to put Jack in the seat for 25, okay? It wasn't like that decision was made before they joined the team, and Briatore is / was Jack Doohan's manager. So there's clearly belief inherent there in Jack, but then you see the Franco Colapinto effect and the assumption that Alpine are trying to get that team as commercially valuable as possible before a sale. Franco Colapinto is way more valuable in the pocket than Jack Doohan is. Plus, Franco was actually very quick. Yes, he was very crashy, but he was very, very quick, and there is that potential to take him and, you know, with time, he will become something very great. I do rate Franco very highly, but let's at least give Jack a chance. And look, the reason I haven't put Pierre Gasly, Franco Colapinto higher in my list is because there is a chance Jack can do something special and make himself undroppable, right? If in these first 5, 6, 7 races, however many people are saying he's going to get, if he can match Pierre, if not beat him, but even if he can match Pierre, that gives Alpine a very, very difficult decision to make, right? Because Jack's way younger than Pierre, way less experienced. Now, this is a huge ask, of course, because I think Pierre's driving at a very top level. He was in 24. It reminded me of his, you know, Streets Won't Forget days in 21 when he was doing absolute bits, especially in qualifying. I think Pierre is a very, very, very capable racing driver, and it's a huge ask for Jack to match him. But it's not impossible. And the thing is, I do rate Jack very highly. I think if he didn't have that crack in his chassis at the start of his F2 season, which kind of ruined his first third of the year, those remaining 2/3 of that season, he outscored Pourchaire, he outscored Vesti. I think he's a very, very, very capable driver, and he's been with Alpine for a long time, right? In the simulator, doing media stuff, doing FP1s. I know Abu Dhabi wasn't this big highlight special, super interesting performance where he did unbelievably well, but he kept it clean. And that was the first most important thing. Imagine how much scrutiny would be on Jack Doohan right now if he'd have pranged it in Yas Marina. He didn't. He kept himself to himself. It wasn't an amazing point scoring performance. He had a bit of a scrap with Stroll in the race and that. He just did what he needed to do. And I hope Jack gets a good fair shot of it, right? If he's not good enough, then fair enough, put Franco in. But I just hope they give him a fair crack of the whip. They've obviously paid Williams a bag to get Franco. They're not going to pay Williams a bag to stick someone on the sidelines as a reserve, right? The intent is Franco to be in the Alpine. It's a matter of when, not if. And Jack Doohan looks like he's going to be the fall guy. Williams, no change. Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon. I'm predicting that Carbono remain at Williams going into 2026 and give the break everything James Vowles a chance to deliver on the, because he's talked it up a lot, James Vowles, 2026. He doesn't care about any 24, 25 results. It's all about 26. Well, let's see what him and Pat Fry and the increasing technical team and improving infrastructure at Williams at Grove can really deliver to a driver of the quality and calibre of Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon, who I think is been a very, very good servant to that team. I mean, look at McLaren's resurgence, look at Aston Martin's brief resurgence when they were fighting at the front as well. It is possible in this regulation era for teams to move and move significantly. So I'm excited about Williams. You know, they're going to have a Mercedes power unit in the back, which is almost guaranteed to be the best, if not equal best. James Vowles really does evoke, doesn't he, a lot of confidence and belief. And you might think he's a bit of a BSer, or you might believe him. Look, he's got Carlos Sainz to sign the deal to go to Williams, a privateer team ultimately, over the bag he would have secured going to an Audi Works seat, which I think speaks volumes in itself. Of course, it must have been tough for Carlos Sainz to accept that, all right, I'm losing this seat at Ferrari, the dream seat, and going to have to take a seat at Williams. But if he can be part of that Williams resurgence, then wow. Bit of a middle finger, I think, to Ferrari. And I would be absolutely here to see it, because seeing Williams fight back at the front again, oh my days, please. And look, as an Alex Albon fan, I'm very, very interested. I'm very excited to see him prove himself and show what he can do, because he has only had, you know, Latifi, Sargent and Colapinto as teammates during his time at Williams, and he hasn't been able to prove, I'll be the first to admit that. He hasn't been able to prove without any shadow of doubt where he is at level-wise, but we know exactly where Carlos Sainz is level-wise, so we will know at the end of 2025 how Alex stacks up relative. I believe it will be pretty close. I think Carlos will probably outscore him over the course of the season, but I don't think it'll be a massive gap between the two of them. Yes, I am biased, I admit that, but I have inherent belief there, and trust me, if Alex starts getting dubs over Carlos, I'm going to be so smug about it, you will not believe it, okay? Because it feels like nobody's giving him a chance right now, but I am. The delusion is real. I have kept these two the same, but they're 7th on my list for a reason. I think Carlos Sainz, of course, he is front and centre. If a big team loses a driver through whatever circumstance, he's going to be right at the top of their shopping list. I think Alex Albon as well. There was talk last year of Red Bull being interested in bringing him back and offering him kind of a contract for down the line. I think you've got two drivers in the prime of their careers who are very lucrative, who are at a team that right now can't give either of them the car to really showcase where they should be or what they can achieve. Okay, we've already seen it from Carlos in particular, what he can do. He can win races amongst some of the best drivers in F1 history. He can out-qualify Charles Leclerc in the same car. Williams can't offer them that, so there's always the risk that someone comes in, a Mercedes, a Red Bull, a Ferrari, or whoever, circumstance changes and they try and snap one of them up. Their demand in the 26 driver market will be strong, but I think they will stay put and give it a chance. Give this 2026 Williams team the opportunity to show them what they can do. This one's going back down now because my shoulder's starting to hurt, so say goodbye, Minton. We lasted quite a while, didn't we, with you on my shoulder? Red Bull, no change. Max Verstappen and Liam Lawson. So of course there's been a lot of talk about Max Verstappen potentially leaving Red Bull over the last probably 9 months or so. I'd say it's been very tumultuous. Newey leaving, Christian's dirty laundry being aired to the world. It's been a lot. Jos obviously calling for Horner to sling his hook. It's not been seamless, has it? Yet Max has still managed to win. I've definitely flip-flopped on this one. I've definitely had moments where I'm like, he's definitely going Mercedes. I've had other moments where he's definitely going Aston Martin, and that's the one that's really rearing its head. There's a figure of $1 billion being bounded about to go to Aston to join that super project. Or does he stay? And I think right now, I'm thinking he stays put. That Mercedes door definitely felt like it closed to me at the end of last year, where you had the George Russell, Max Verstappen tiff, and Toto was very publicly in support of George. He didn't need to be necessarily. So as much as Toto has waxed lyrical about Max for a while now, I do think that he's probably, you know, put his flag in the sand on the side of George. And also, I mentioned this earlier about the political side of Mercedes. Toto is one of very few team principals who seems to be all on board with the whole like clamp down on swearing stuff. And you got to remember, Toto's a shareholder in the team. He's not just a team principal. So what is going to be important to Toto is going to be different to what would be important to all the other 9/10 with Cadillac team principals on the grid. Plus, you've even had Toto calling out Valtteri, saying we are Mercedes, so maybe the new calendar is not on anymore, regarding obviously Bottas's return to the team as a reserve. Sauber really let Valtteri be himself, and it feels like Mercedes, well, they'll let him keep the mullet, but other than that, it's not that team. And I don't see Max driving for a team that won't let Valtteri Bottas put his bum on a calendar. I think Max, more than any other driver on the grid, just wants to be himself first and foremost, and I don't know if Mercedes would be keen on that, and race. That's all he wants to do. Look, as for Aston Martin, of course, I can absolutely see the merit in the move, and one day I think it probably will happen. But in 2026, I've decided no for this list anyway. I'll probably change my mind tomorrow. Linking back up with Honda, which is essentially a works deal at Aston Martin, alongside Adrian once again, and you've got Lawrence Stroll throwing the kitchen sink at this project. The Saudi PIF investment plug in the financial black hole. The Aston Martin share price is still struggling at the moment, yet the money is there. There is the support. You've got Aramco and all that involved. We know how much money the Saudis are throwing at sport as of late. That 1 billion figure that's being bounded about at the minute does not surprise me. I think they could back it if they wanted to, but also, do I think Max is, you know, would he go to a team that he thinks are less competitive for the money? No way. Like, Max has already won 4 world titles. He's said anything beyond the first one is a bonus. He's got all the money in it. I don't think Max is remotely turned on by the money, okay? For him, it's, can you give me a car that I can win in? That's what he cares about, first and foremost, job done. And if Aston can, then he'll be tempted. But I think he needs to give Red Bull a chance in 26. Because, look, Newey left, sure, I get it, right? It's a big factor in that. However, the Newey tax going into 2022 was always going to be exponentially higher than it is going into 26, right? Because he was the guy, he was the ground effect guy. No one else carried the level of expertise and knowledge that Adrian Newey did going into 2022 for ground effects. However, all of the teams now in 22, 23, 24 and 25 will have been working on ground effects and improved and developed their own understanding of how ground effect works. Now, these 26 cars will inherently be ground effect as well. You've got Pierre Wache, you've got that whole Red Bull technical team, the aerodynamics department, the people who took Adrian's fundamental ideas, and they're the ones who actually developed them and turned them into real components for the car. They're still broadly there. They've lost staff, don't get me wrong, of course, at Red Bull, and it's always hard when you get to the top to maintain staff and keep everyone motivated and moving in the same direction. But Do I think with Newey gone, they're just going to fall completely to pieces? No. Obviously, the Red Bull Ford powertrain is a big unknown there, but I think it's worth Max being like, you know what, I'm going to stay for 26. I know that I can get the best out of whatever this team gives me, and the team understands what Max needs from a car. Keeping Max Verstappen is Red Bull's best shot at doing well in 26. And if with Red Bull and Max Verstappen together in 26, they can't achieve success, Max can be like, you know what, I got 4, he'll maybe have 5 world titles, maybe he'll win it in 25. I've given everything to this team. We've achieved so much together. However, in 26, you are not the best team anymore. And if I want to continue winning world titles, I need to move elsewhere. And fair enough, he would have given him a fair crack of the whip. Whereas if he leaves Red Bull ahead of 2026, moves to Aston Martin to start that season, then you'll never know. Maybe Red Bull will actually be better than Aston in 26. It is possible. Of course it's possible. And as for Liam Lawson, look, I think with all the to-ing and froing, we know Yuki's not getting that seat. We know Arvid Lindblad's being lined up for the future, but not quite right now. I think, and I've said this many a time last year, Yuki deserved it more, but I think of the options available, of Lawson, of Tsunoda, of Perez, of Ricciardo, as soon as Ricciardo was off the table, I think Lawson was likely to be the best of those three in that Red Bull specifically, because he's done lots of testing, sim work with the nuances that car needs to drive it quickly. And I think Liam's better prepared than anyone else, even better prepared than Ricciardo was, because that team's changed a lot since Ricciardo was there. Even though I do think Ricciardo would have done a good job, I'm feeling good about Liam. I really do think he's going to do better than Gasly, better than Albon, better than Perez ever did. And then look, come 27, maybe Lindblad will be ready, and then either Max will bugger off to Aston Martin, then you can have Lindblad, Lawson, or Max will stay, and then it's a straight up Lawson versus Lindblad for that seat alongside Max. Aston Martin, one change, Fernando Alonso and Yuki Tsunoda. Even without Max moving to Aston Martin for 2026, I'm saying for what feels like the 6th consecutive year that Lance Stroll will depart that team. Look, I'll be right 1 year, okay? I've just got to keep predicting it, and eventually I'll be spot on. By the time 2025 has been and gone, Lance Stroll will have completed 9 seasons in Formula 1, which is the same number as Mark Webber and Ralf Schumacher did, right? That's a hell of a career to have. And he'll still only be 27 by the time 2026 comes along. Aston Martin have their Valkyrie project in WEC, which they're kind of soft launching this year. They're doing the 24-hour races, saving them for 2026, right? When they full launch that project and go all in on WEC, stick Lance in the car, man, come on. Like, WEC's a huge deal. You've got Ford and Genesis have just announced they're going to be in it as well. WEC is growing and increasing. Aston Martin need to increase that brand value, and to put an F1 driver in their WEC car, even though it's Lance. Lance is very capable, right? He's no Latifi. He's very capable, clearly. He's been on the podium multiple times, right? And it's time he moves on. Stick him in a WEC car. I'll watch Lance Stroll in a WEC car, right? I'll be more inclined to watch it knowing Lance Stroll's in it, because I'll be really interested to see how he does. Yes, Lawrence Stroll is the figurehead at that team, but that doesn't mean he's the sole top dog. No, he definitely is not. Lawrence's stake is estimated to be worth about 22.7%, with the Saudi PIF, a couple of billionaires, all sharing between 10 and 20% each. Then, of course, there's the new Honda relationship. They'll be very keen to lobby for Yuki Tsunoda's place in that team alongside Fernando, because Fernando's got his contract for 25 and for all of 26. Look, as time goes on, Lawrence's ownership in that team will only continue to dilute as they bring in more new investors and try and make that team a serious competitive force at the front, which they've got the factory now. They've got Newey, they've got Andy Cowell, they've got all these hires, Enrico Cardile coming in as well. Bit of a false start, you got to say, but the ingredients are there, okay? The recipe is being cooked, but will it taste good? We don't know yet. So as the expectation increases, the pressure on Aston Martin to get their share price back up as well, the longer you keep Lance, the more untenable that becomes, right? When there's other quality drivers available out there, be that a Yuki Tsunoda or be that a Max Verstappen in the future. But I'm saying Yuki, I think Honda get their guy into that team for 26 and Lance goes to WEC. It's a graceful move and it keeps everybody happy, including Fernando Alonso, right? Because Fernando wants his shot at a third world title. Aston Martin can possibly give that to him in 2026. He said himself, like, he'll be 45 by the time 2026 is over. It's now or never, really, right? It's 2026 or bust. He doesn't have a contract beyond 2026. If they can give him the car, he wants to be spearheading that title fight. Yuki Tsunoda will enable him to do that. Max Verstappen would not enable him to do that because, of course, I think Max is better than Fernando. Fernando at his peak But of course, he's not at his peak in his almost mid-40s now. That's very fair to say. There's a clear 1-2 right now with Lance, but Lance is a tough sell. I think Yuki's a good sell because there's a lot of positive fan sentiment towards Yuki Tsunoda, and Honda would be very happy as well. Alonso, Tsunoda in 26, spearhead a title fight with Fernando, then come 27, either Fernando retires and Max comes in, and then it's Max, Yuki. That's probably the most likely way this plays out. They'd finally be teammates. Haas, one change, Esteban Ocon and Ryo Hirakawa. Hear me out, because I think there's method to the madness on this one. Akamatsu's really steadied the ship at Haas, hasn't he? I've been so impressed with his no-nonsense, low-key energy. It's exactly what that team needed. Losing Nico is a shame, especially to a direct rival, but the Audi project was always going to tempt him away. There's nothing Haas could have done to keep holding Nico Hülkenberg. And even Magnussen towards the end of the year showed why Haas gave him so much time in that team over so many years, because he can do it. He can be a top quality driver. Bringing in Ollie was an absolute no-brainer. Obviously, Ferrari-Haas relationship for one thing, but also in those 3 races, he did a very, very good job in all of them to various degrees, but always at least a good job, I'd say. And of course, then Esteban Ocon. I know a lot of you don't rate him. You know I do. Okay, I think Ocon is very, 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 very good. All right, and he takes opportunities when he gets them, and not all drivers do. I would actually argue that Behrman, Ocon is an upgrade on Hülkenberg, Magnussen. I actually would. So then, Tommo, why are you suggesting that Behrman's out at the end of his first season in 2025? One word, Toyota. Ryo Hirakawa and Ritomo Miyata have been getting plenty of mileage, testing mileage in the Haas. Also, Hirakawa's done testing mileage in Alpine at the moment. He's an Alpine reserve, and he's done mileage in the McLaren. Toyota have facilitated this. They're giving him F1 mileage for a reason. 3 different teams. It's very rare you see some driver who's never driven F1 before drive a Haas, a McLaren and an Alpine. That's unusual unless there's more to it, and I think there's definitely more to it. I think the Haas Toyota relationship is only going to grow over time. Toyota are clearly keen to get involved in F1. We might even be looking at a rebadging of that team, Toyota Haas F1 team in 26. I could absolutely see that happening. And I mean, the colour palette even works. Toyota Gazoo Racing and Haas, white, black, red, lovely jubbly. Look, Ollie is a British Ferrari guy, Esteban is French, and we know how much politics can play a part in driver transfers being what they are. Okay, of course they do. As much as I think Ollie and Esteban will do well in 2025, I do think pressure from outside will manifest and potentially see Ollie losing his seat. And let me explain why I'm saying Ollie specifically. Because yes, Toyota have said they've got no plans for their own F1 engine, but actions speak louder than words. And I feel like that's an inevitability. A manufacturer the size of Toyota being involved in an F1 team, they're going to want to build their own engine at some point, especially as Honda are building theirs. And the Honda-Toyota rivalry is big, right? So if Honda are doing it themselves, Toyota will want to as well at some point. Ferrari will be very aware of this as well. And as much as them and Haas have had a great relationship since, well, is basically an old spec Ferrari car for a lot of their early years at Haas, I think that relationship is eventually going to kind of fade out as Toyota come in and exert their influence. And that's not a massive problem for Ferrari because they've got a new engine customer in Cadillac. Now look, Ritomo Miyata bagged 25 super license points from his 2023 Super Formula World Championship title. And as much as 2024 was a slog for him, I do think he will be better in F2 in 2025, and with some FP1s here and there, I'm pretty confident that Miyata can get himself to the 40 points needed ahead of 26. As for Ryo, look, he might be 30 right now, which is, same age as Carlos Sainz, so certainly not beyond his prime. Yes, he's never raced in F1, but he's got a lot of mileage over the years in, well, Super Formula and WEC predominantly. In fact, he won WEC in 2023 with Toyota, which included winning the Le Mans 24-hour, and finished 5th in Super Formula that year. That's 37 points all on its own. Then you include his 4th place finish in WEC last year in 2024, and he's already over the 40 needed. Plus all the FP1s he's going to be able to do. Like, again, no problem on the super license front for Hirakawa. And I do think he's the guy, right? He's done more testing in more different cars than Miyata. I think Miyata may be for the future, but I could definitely see Hirakawa taking a seat alongside Ocon at Haas, Toyota Haas, in 26. That's my prediction. Cadillac, 2 changes, Colton Herta and Ollie Behrman. Look, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I've just explained about Ollie Behrman, why he's going to be departing Haas at the end of 2025. Ferrari's new partnership with Cadillac is going to essentially replace their partnership with Haas. I don't actually necessarily think that's a bad move for Ollie and a bad move for Cadillac either. Yes, he'll only have 1 year under his helmet, but that's 27 races with the 3 that he did in 2024 as well. And he'd have raced in a Ferrari and a Haas, and now he'll be racing in a Cadillac. I think that's a decent pool of experience for a driver that there's a lot of belief and a lot of excitement at Ferrari about, that Ollie Bearman, I absolutely believe, of course I do, is the real deal. Ferrari will of course have a big hand in facilitating this. They're doing Cadillac a big favour by supplying them engines, and I think they'll be supplying them with an incredibly talented, young, exciting racing driver, right? Kind of like Charles Leclerc was when he was at Sauber in 2018. You know, I'll be getting those kind of vibes from Bearman at Cadillac. Charles was decent out the blocks, and I think Ollie will be as well, but he'll be even better in his second year, surely. And then alongside him, of course, they want an American in their top seat, and with Colton Herta finishing second in IndyCar last year, he's got most of the super license points needed to get him there. He's not quite at 40, but again, with FP1s, I'm sure he can facilitate something with McLaren, because Zach Brown seems very keen on Cadillac and Herta getting into an F1 seat. I really think Colton Herta, like, he's mid-20s, 26 now I want to say. I think he's an incredibly talented racing driver. He's been doing bits in IndyCar for years. He's been a bit inconsistent, but also so have Andretti. Put him in a Penske and his career in IndyCar is looking quite different to how it is, but he's still managed to thrive and succeed and have these moments where he's looked absolutely mustard. But look, of course I've put Cadillac 11th on my list because the chance of me predicting their 2 drivers spot on is very, very unlikely, and there's so many Perez, Bottas, Magnussen, Palou, O'Ward, the list goes on and on and on for who Cadillac could sign to that team. Zhou Guanyu, the new team principal, is Zhou Guanyu's manager, so you never know. But I'm saying Herta Bearman. Thoughts and feelings down in the comments below. Let me know who you think, what you think. Am I wrong? Will I be wrong? If you're going to call me out, then in 12 months' time, when I'm right about all 22 of these, then you're going to be sorry. Much love for supporting and watching what I do. It really does mean the world. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Zada.